Okay, Ramu has been introduced. So, in fact, we will miss Dr. M.L. Jat, but unfortunately, I think everybody talked about increasing R&D budget. I don't think he heard it, but he has to fight for his budget. So, I mean, it's very important from his point of view, and also from our point of view, that he is there in the ministry and trying to pick every single rupee that he can get. Now, of course, Ramu is a combination of sorts. He's an agricultural researcher, student, scientist by training, and in practice he is a farmer who tries to do different things and has succeeded, which is the more important part. So he'll have a lot to say, but before he gets on to speak, I had a couple of things to, actually I had a couple of questions to Dr. Jat, but I can't ask them now. No, I would rather answer them myself. One of the things I remember, and Amo, and this is important for you, is when I was Agriculture Secretary, I thought that ICR deserved a much larger budget. And Dr. Kasturi Rangan was then the member of the Planning Commission, and he agreed in principle. But after spending a whole day with ICR, he came back fairly disappointed. And he didn't increase the budget too much. I didn't want to ask him why, but that's what he told me. So obviously there is something about the structure of ICR that we need to seriously look at. I would suspect it is over-centralization is one of the issues, so therefore you don't do enough locally, and there's not enough freedom for the 90 odd institutes that are there and the 600 plus KVKs that are there. That could be one reason. The second reason could be that we are still stuck in the rice wheat research syndrome, and we don't go enough into the other crops. And the third, which is more appealing or kind of strikes me, is that we haven't done enough work on soils. And in fact, I often ask this question that ICR, correct me if I'm wrong, ICR has soil chemists, right? Do they have a soil biologists? Yeah. That's where my doubts arose, because if you say soil is a living thing and we need microbes and earthworms and all to be active, why do we have an overload of soil chemists and not so many soil biologists? Now, Ramu, you have to the floor for yourself. And we all agree that there should be a higher investment in R&D. But would you like to sort of, apart from whatever you want to say, how should this R&D be spent? I think that's also an important question.
Thank you, Dr. Nandakumar ji. And as a last speaker and also standing between you and tea is a difficult situation. And also when match becomes one-sided, also it may not be very interesting as well. Just to answer your question, one of the days when we were having a discussion in Hyderabad, Jairam Ramesh, then the environment minister, was there. And then we were discussing about the BT brinjal release. So the whole discussion was happening, and he was asking why only the white-haired people are talking about the problems, while all the black-haired people are saying we need new technology. So it was a discussion in Krishak in an ICR institution. So why wisdom dawns only after your retirement, not when you are working? So that was the question. And towards the end of the discussion, he actually asked, if Krishi Bhavan is closed, do you expect any farmer will come and ask, when are you going to open it? And if I say I'll only open if one farmer comes and asks, will it happen? And there was no answer, and I would say today also it's no answer. If probably except for the staff, no one will know that it is closed even. And I think that answers your question. It became irrelevant. I think the whole problem is that ICR as a research institution, it has become irrelevant because they neither understand agriculture nor understand farmers. And they're trying to deal with both. That's the reality of it. Not to be harsh on them, but that is the reality of it. I worked with ICR for about 10 years, and then I thought I should not wait for retirement, and then started with CSA. And in the last, say, 20 years, we worked with large number of farmers across the country, and probably we work with nearly about 1 lakh farmers, and directly with about 50,000 farmers. And then my experiences are from that. Our policies, right from the morning, we were listening. So our problems are different, but the solutions where we are trying to find solutions are very different. So our investments and regulations are creating more problems than solutions. That is where we are. Just to put you some numbers, we produce today nearly about 354 million tons of food. If every Indian has to eat 3 times a day, we have for 2 to 3 years we can eat the food. 2 to 3 years, there's no issue of food grains at all. There's no problem of food grains. So we are producing 2 to 3 times what we need. But still, there is about 46% people are hungry, and malnutrition is very high, and the children, young children who are dying with malnutrition because of the food related problems are still high. And while per capita availability is very high, we still stand in the global hunger index 102 in the 123 countries. So there's a problem is not of production, but it's more about a distribution problem. I think that's the first thing we need to understand. Second important issue is not just about the quantity of food, but also the quality of food. Quality of food. So if you look at from a quality of food, the excessive focus is on just 2 crops and 2 nutrients and 2 states. In India, that's where the entire problem comes up. And we want to solve all other problems with this focus. Rice, wheat, Punjab, Haryana, nitrogen. And then we want to solve all the problems, which is also again not a reality of it. If you look at actually map India's anemia, if you just map India's anemia and map the soil status of these and wherever soils are poor in iron is the where actually you have the anemia. So your soils are poor, your soil doesn't have iron, your soil doesn't have zinc, your soil doesn't have many of these micronutrients, so your crop doesn't have, you are not applying because it is not supported, and your crop doesn't have. When your crop doesn't have, you try to add it to a biofortification, right? A fortification or a biofortification. There is an excessive focus on a genetic based technologies, as if we can produce more better seeds, so either it is through improved varieties, or it is through genetic engineering, or it is through gene editing, all these are similar. People may say, for legal purposes, they may say gene editing is not genetic engineering and all, but basically it's all about tampering with genes and thinking that genes will change everything. So it's like Hitler thinking that birth will change everything, or traditional India thinking caste will determine your future. So it's about genetic determinism without focusing on the environment in which it is grown. I think that's where the problem lies. And with that, we are getting into more and more toxic problems. Couple of examples I would say. Instead of improving the soil fertility, if you are going on to add on iron to your rice and then make it mandatory that the entire rice distributed through PDS will be biofortified, it can lead to toxicity. Vitamin A or iron, if you are adding it to it, it may lead to toxicity in the people who doesn't require it. It may lead to toxicity. And getting into a genetic engineering like golden rice kind of technology, it can further cause a problem, because if you want to eat acquire golden rice, vitamin A through golden rice, you may need to eat 5 to 6 kg a day, which is next to impossible kind of thing. I think so. We are getting into a technology-based solutions rather than trying to understand where the problem lies and solve the problem. I think that's a fundamental problem with the research system where it is. Going beyond research system, if you actually look at, before getting into that, there is also another study which was done by ICR itself. ICR itself. It's not somebody else study, it's ICR study, which was published last year only. And that study shows that there is a decline in the nutrition quality of food, and that decline is nearly 20 to 30%. If you take nutrients, if you take zinc, if you take any of the iron, or if you take any of the nutrients, they're declining. And say compared to 60 years back or 50 years back, there is a significant decline. And that decline is for two reasons. One is about the soils, of course, because the soil doesn't have nutrients plants cannot take. And the study also revealed that the selection of varieties is so faulty that even if nutrients are there, the plants are unable to absorb. This is a published paper from the ICR. And that's where again it brings back to the question, are you learning from the studies which you are doing? So the other question which you asked, when are you going to decentralize? Few years back in one of the conferences like this, I asked the same question with one of the senior officials in ICR. Two questions I asked. I asked, when are you going to decentralize ICR? He said, we have 40 institutions in the country. That's what their understanding of decentralization means. Beyond that, they don't understand decentralization. Second question is, when are you going to democratize decision making? They said, don't bring politics here. For him, democratization is about politics. Then I didn't dare to ask the third question, when are you going to be accountable? I think being accountable and having an agroecological framework for agricultural research, it's not just for organic farming and natural farming. I think you should ask the same questions to everyone. I think that's where the problem lies. We don't have a kind of accountability framework for the research in this country or for the extension in this country. And whatever changes we want to bring in agriculture, we are trying to do it through people who are not interested. So it's like a Saas Bahu kahani. So they're not interested to do it, but we want to push them to do things which they are not interested or not understanding. These two are the ones which were happening. And there is a very narrow genetic base of the plant varieties which are grown today. So if you look at in the last, say, 60 years of research in India, if you look at all the varieties released, their genetic base is very narrow. Very, very narrow. Say, for example, 85% of the rice eaten in this country comes from just 10 varieties. And if you look at the genetic base of the 10 varieties, probably it is just one or two, not more than that. While India used to have nearly 50,000-60,000 varieties, and in which nearly 20,000-30,000 have very diverse nutrient content in that. So we neglected our own diversity. We just focused on improving yield and improving yield at any cost. And did we achieve the yield? If you look at, no, we didn't achieve the yield. And today the factor productivity of fertilizer has gone down. So Ashok Gulati ji has put in the right way. So factor productivity has gone down significantly. Say in 1970s, if you are able to get per every kg of fertilizer used, if you are getting about 13.4 kg, today we are getting just 2.5 kg. And how do we improve it? You can only improve if you improve your soils. Where is the focus? There is no focus at all. There is no focus at all. And unless you improve your soil fertility, unless you increase your soil organic matter to at least 1%, say soil organic carbon to be 1%, and say soil organic matter may be around 1.5% or so, even whatever the natural functions of soil has to happen will not happen. So today, soil is on a deathbed and you are feeding it with saline, and then we are expecting it to run and then produce and win the Olympics, which is not going to happen. So how do we improve soils? Because the entire incentives is to spoil soils. 2-3 examples I will tell. There is so much discussed today about the rice problem, right? But India traditionally used to grow rice. When India used to grow rice, why today suddenly rice has become a problem? Conventionally, if you look at, rice used to be grown in areas where there should be 2-3 different ways of growing rice. Largely, water stagnated areas is normally grown rice. In other areas, it used to be dry rice. And we got into a habit of growing rice with standing water. And standing water is to manage the weeds, not because rice requires so much water. Rice can stand water. It can live in water, but it doesn't require so much water. It can grow with 2/3 less water. It can certainly grow with 2/3 less water if you can manage your weeds. So traditionally what used to happen is rice fields are the water harvesting structures. So if there is a water, it slowly infiltrates and enriches your groundwater or the open wells, and then you used to pump out and grow the second crop in the second season. That's a traditional practice in India. Today what has happened is we started putting water. When you put water, water stagnates. So you started puddling the soil. So that water, there will be hard pan created so that water will not grow, and the entire, almost all the rice fields in this country are as hard as this floor on which we are sitting today. They become so hard. So root system won't go down. So all the nutrition which plant gets is from that 6 inches of puddled soil. Water or moisture or the nutrients, it takes only from that 6 inches of the soil. And so as a result, what has happened? Rice fields which were water harvesting structures has become water guzzling crops today. So you are pumping out more and more. And puddling also destroyed the soil. You know, in a natural course, to farm 1 centimeter of soil, it takes nearly about 400 to 500 years in a natural course. If you are doing a good agriculture practices, you may cut down that period a little bit. So it converts into nearly about 1.5 tons of soil per year of the natural soil formation. Today what we are losing is nearly 16 tons at the national average. Which is 8 times the natural soil formation you are losing every year. And at the national level, it amounts to nearly 5,335 tons. And now look at, if you don't have nutrients, it is because you are losing your soil. Unless you bring back your soil, unless you make it healthy, no amount of good quality seed will help you to get the yield, because genetics only sets limit. The expression of genetics is determined by the environment. It's like nature nurture question which always we had, right? Whether your birth determines your quality or your brought up or your environment determines. It's the same question everywhere. And that too, we are getting into a situation where climate change is becoming a problem. And so your soil is also degraded. Your soil is degraded, your water quality is going down, and then your climate is also changing, and then you are trying to solve the problem with the genetics, which is an impossible phenomenon. So how do we address this is something which is very, very critical. Having said all the problems, let's look at also solutions. See, every complex problem need not have a complex solution. Solution can be very simple even. See, if you can increase soil organic matter, how do we increase soil organic matter? Grow more crops in the field, or add and recycle more of the biomass. If that can be supported, probably there will be a bigger shift towards improving the soils. And this has been demonstrated elsewhere significantly. I would say the state of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Karnataka, there are a number of farmers who are doing organic and natural farming. So practices can be easy to be adopted. But how do we ease it, reduce drudgery? So there is a research which needs to be done and which need to be focused on, and that can be done. Second important issue is about how do we make transitions in the public policy. So when we talk about food systems, the transitions are at 2 levels. One is at the farmers level, agro ecosystem level, how farmers make a transition. And large discussions always happen around it. How do we help farmers to make a transition? And we expect farmers to make a transformation. So they are doing conventional agriculture, tomorrow they will become natural or organic kind of thing. Whereas at the food system level, if you are looking at a policy, if you are looking at a market, we never look at a transformation. We only focus on incremental change. I'll put in say 1% of the budget or 0.1% of the budget in under natural farming, and I won't release the money. See, this year, for example, 2 years back, nearly 3,000 crores was announced for a natural farming program. Not even 10% of the budget has been released till date, and we have 4 months more, and we expect say 10 lakh farmers to become organic, and then 1 crore farmers to make the transition. So doing good has become a problem which farmers have to solve, and creating a problem has been nationally subsidized. Say for example, if urea, example, morning Gulati ji was talking about 35% is the nitrogen which plants take, and that's when he was student, I would say, when he was student or when I was student in college. Today it is less than 15%. And if you take many soils, it may be much lesser, because if your soil doesn't have organic matter, it cannot hold whatever the nutrients you are applying. It just goes into the environment as a nitrous oxide. So if 20% of the emissions are coming from methane and nitrous oxide in this country, 85% of it is subsidized by Government of India. And and they are not just promoting crops, but they are also changing the ecosystem for that. I'll take the case of my own state, Telangana, for example. In the last 10 years, the area under rice has increased nearly by 230% in Rabi season, in Kharif season, and nearly 450% in the Rabi season, area under rice. And to make it happen, they have built world's biggest dam. And Telangana, as you all know, it's a very plateau, Deccan plateau. So you can't build a gravity dam where water can flow down like Bakranangal or Nagarjun Sagar. So you have to pump back water into the dam. So it's not a dam which let water go down, but it needs water to be pumped into the dam. So 2 times you need pumps to put in. So we have the Bahubali. They call it actually Bahubali motor, world's biggest motor. And it requires nearly about 12,000 crores subsidy on the annual electricity. And finally, when all this was done, bridge broke. And today, bridge is just standing like that as a monument. So that's a kind of, I would say, mistakes systems are doing. So I think if we have to get out of all these entanglements, I think the only thing which can solve the problem is take out the responsibility of deciding about what crops should be grown in this country, how it has to be grown from ICR. I think that's the first thing one need to take decision. Let the states choose what crops to be grown or what crops to be procured. Why only center decide? Say, I'm sure if rice is not the crop which is procured, half of the Punjab will shift away from rice. See, it's not that farmers are unwise. Farmers are caught in a mess where they can't take their own decisions. And everything else is supported except for a transition. Second, put better support systems at the field level. I would say better support systems at the field level. Because today, transitioning towards organic or natural farming or improving their own soil, even if I am doing conventional agriculture, unless I add on, say, even if you look at the entire ICR recommendations, they say 10 tons of FIM to be applied is a general recommendation, but no one applies. And FIM is one of the most, I would say, inefficient way of applying organic matter. And they have not updated on that till now, say, in the last several years kind of thing. So how do we improvise soil organic matter is another thing. So it requires more decentralized enterprises to come up so that the crop residues can be composted and then put it back. So getting out of some of the debates we have today, whether organic and natural farming can solve the problem, or whether desi cow or videsi cow will solve the problem, whether desi earthworm or videsi earthworm will solve the problem. I think we should get into how do we improve our soils, how do we efficiently use our waters, and then how do we decentralize procurement and distribution of food systems? I think that's another very important issue. Why should centralize? Why should we centralize? Let states produce, procure, distribute food, and it can be state level. Even it can go down to state level, district level, because nearly 16% of the total cost which is spent on PDS goes on the logistics part, and nearly 20-30% goes on waste. So I think all that can be cut down. So another important issue is whenever we talk about this one, people say this is not possible. And I would say I come from Andhra Pradesh, where we have today nearly 10 lakh farmers made a transition. And between 2004 and 2008, we could reduce the pesticide use by over 50%. And today we have in front of us districts like Dantewada in Chhattisgarh, which have become 100% organic. All these in spite of governments, in spite of ICR, in spite of Department of Agriculture, in spite of the subsidies which are there today as it is. Imagine if this transition can happen in the policies, and imagine if more support goes to the farmers to make the transition happen. Farmers are willing to change. So the question is about whether, as consumers, are we ready? As a policy makers, are the policies are ready? I think these two are the big questions. And food systems have to change. I think we cannot continue the way we are today. And say, even if we go by the global commitments which we made, I think one of the commitment was that by in 4 years down the lane from now, we have to cut down our emissions by 50%, which also means 50% fertilizer use reduction has to be cut down, 50% area under rice has to be cut down, or 50% emissions from rice has to be cut down. But looks like no way we have thinking about it. I think that's where the issue lies. So that's where the question comes up. The first question you asked, where do we put resources? I think that's the question comes up. We are putting resources in area where there is no accountability. So can we again bring back to the same question? Can the states decide? Can the states decide? And then can the local communities decide how to make the transitions, and then support the transitions? And if the results are not there, then make it accountable. I think then things can happen. So you can't have nutrition security without a good soil. I think that's so if you are thinking about, say, we can do aquaculture, hydroponics and all, I think is not going to happen. So that will not get into, it may be your side dish, it may not be your staple food. Last very important issue is also about changing food habits also are very critical. Changing food habits because of the lifestyle changes. So for example, if you are all eating rice, 50 years back, 60 years back, it makes sense because you need more carbs because you are hardworking. Today we are sitting. So all the carbs which you are eating gets accumulated in your belly. That's why irrespective of who are sitting here, everybody has a pot belly. Because we eat more than we can spend. And so how do we get out of this? You can only get out of this if you start eating more proteins, and also your calories just, you need nearly about 25% coming from protein, but today you get only about 12% of it. We eat very little of proteins. So shift towards more protein, which also means shift towards more pulse crops, which also means support more of pulses rather than rice. So this whole food systems is a context specific. Just because 100 years back we are trying to do something, or 50 years back we were trying to do something, doesn't mean that will solve the problem. So lastly, whenever we are discussing about change, the debate is between natural farming and conventional agriculture. I think it's not a binary. If 50 years back knowledge cannot solve today's problem, 1000 years back knowledge also will not solve the problem. How do we learn from those experiences, make it relevant today so that we can solve the tomorrow's problem? I think that's what we need to look at. I hope things will change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramu. I wish Mr. Jat was here to hear you. There may be some questions. I have one question to you. Technology is neutral because you say CRISPR, gene editing, or GM. Technology is generally neutral. And people who develop technology, they don't look at the uses, they just develop a technology. I think how you use the technology and in what context and where is your own decision. It's part of policy, it's part of whatever. It could be a farmer's decision, it could be a government decision. How do we get the the user right? Like you said, should we be looking more at soils or should we be looking more at the genes? Is a choice that people make. The technology is available on both sides. How do we make that conscious choice, and how do we also look at the unintended consequences of a particular technology? Because that's something that we often miss in public policy, that we choose something 5, 6 years, 10 years down the line, we see an unintended consequence and it's too late to go back.
Sir, I would like to make a distinction between science and technology. While science is neutral, technology is not. Because technology is always for a purpose. Gun is a gun, it can only kill people. It may be good people, bad people, it can only kill people. Technology is like sword. Always people say you can use, but sword is like the sword in Chhatrapati Shivaji's hand. It depends on whose hand it is and whose neck it is. So I think technology has a purpose. Clearly we need to understand. So it's the same purpose, sir. So technology has a purpose, and we need to look at whether it is relevant for us in our context. I think that's the point, whether it is relevant for us. So the decisions around that is the important issue. Should I buy a knife or should I buy a sword is the decision one has to make. That's a reality check one need to have. So the people who make the decision should be accountable for the decision they make. I think that's where the problems are coming in. And many a times we are a solution driven nation. So we go by solution, and if that doesn't work, nobody is accountable for that. So I think that's the challenge we always have. So we need to go back to the accountability systems per se. Then only I think things will improve. So it's not about, and then second, I think very important issue in the such situations, what we need to remember, probably one thumb rule we can take is, if there is a simple solution, use it. Keep it simple. If there is a simple solution available, don't go for a complex solution. Why should we answer? Many times, say for example, let me talk about BT cotton. So when BT cotton came into the thing, the resistance development was very discussed. It's not that it was not discussed, right? And then there was a quick fix solution which was fixed, saying refuge will be developed, will be added, without even doing research whether it is suitable, possible kind of things. And later on, when we found resistance is developing faster, we didn't find any solution for that. And by the time, every cotton in this country has been replaced, kind of thing. Likewise, if you look at pesticides, if you look at any of these decisions, so for example, let me take the pesticides till date. How does the ban on pesticides come into this country? If you look at the last, say, 50, 60 years, did ICR recommend at least banning one pesticide till date? Did it come from the decisions of ICR saying it is from the market or from the civil societies or other people put pressure? And in fact, I remember in 2011 in the Stockholm conference when the debate happened around endosulfan, it was ICR which argued that endosulfan should be continued. So the problem is about lack of accountability is what I would say.
Any questions? Yeah, many of them. Ask, I think all of you can ask and then reply together. One by one.
Yes, thank you. I'm Professor Santosh Jain Pasi from Delhi University and a public health nutritionist by profession. No doubt, as a nutritionist, I would say that to take care of the malnutrition, there is no other solution but dietary diversity. That is a very, very long-term solution. So regarding fortification, I would say what you were talking of, that fortification can cause toxicity, but the fortificants which are added are at a much lower level than the upper tolerable limit. Again, there are, fortification will be done for many foods, so that can. Now my point is that when there is undernutrition, malnutrition, like example of anemia, that can set an intergenerational cycle of malnutrition. Pregnant mothers, a large number have hemoglobin levels below 7 grams. Now they are going to give birth to children who are anemic. So I think the only answer for this is a short-term solution in terms of nutrient supplementation or food fortification. So I would like to have your view on that. Thank you.
We can take the next question as well.
Regarding rice, in North India we used to have during only festival season, not every day. Because of women, working women, for them making chapati is much more difficult than cooking rice. So this is one of the reasons rice is much more popular in North India. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vijay from JDA Partners. So we are a consulting firm. I'm currently working with the J&K government in their agriculture program. So you talked about setting accountability, right? And that's where my question lies. So one of the ideas is, can linking finances to the outcomes that institutions or governments drive can be a solution to this? Let's say, for example, ICR gets fund proportionate to the improvement they do in the extension service, or state governments, we talked about conditional cash transfers, state governments get funding proportionate to the outcomes that they achieve in the citizens' lives. Can that be an answer to this?
Would you like to answer? Or
Yeah. Certainly dietary diversity.
Sorry, I'm Sanjeev from Business Standard. You just mentioned that food systems should be decentralized, states should be given the power to procure and distribute. But most of the time we have seen that when you transfer the states make a mess of it. But most of the time they end up making much more of a political statement than being, and invariably it comes back to the center to run those systems. So how should the states do? Because if you leave everything to the states, many a times they don't actually do it in a very proper manner.
There are 4 questions. So dietary diversity is certainly very important. So dietary diversity also comes from the production diversity. So today if you are highly monoculturing, then diversity also goes down. I think well agreed. I think that's what wherever success come in about the human health or the soil health, both is about crop system diversification and also food diversification. These two are very critical. On the fortification, the point I was trying to make is, I'm not saying when there is a problem, we should not supplement it. The problem is that making it universal, making it mandatory is a problem. Say in the PDS now they are making fortification in some states now they made it mandatory that it should be fortified only. Second, fortification, say if you look at the Indian meal, is a fortified, right? It's that's what you call it as a diversity, right? So we have a diverse food if you can have, it can supplement. But when you are in an extreme problem, then it may need supplementation to bring to your normal level so that you can maintain it. I think that's what I would say. Like I was talking about soil health, human health also is around that. So we are in a very bad situation in many states. So in such situation, maybe we need to bring it to the normal and then we can manage it through the food kind of thing. So I'm not against that. But what I'm trying to say is, when you are generalizing and then making policies, don't look at only as a genetic solutions or fortification as a solution. Look at how many of the crop-based solution, nature-based solutions can be looked at. Certainly, it's about linking to finances. I would certainly say that is because I think I was talking to Ajay on this as well. See, in this country, do we have anywhere we are measuring, saying, say, farmers' incomes have improved from here to here this year? Or say, investments made has led to, say, increased benefits to the farmers, or say, extension system reduced input use by so much. So, nobody tracks any of these things. Today, it is all process based. Say, ICR says I released 100 varieties last year and then I get fund. But how many of the farmers are adopting those 100 varieties? Nobody looks into it. So rather than focusing on the process based indicators, can we look at outcome based indicators, particularly on the natural resource health and then the people's incomes? I think these two are the ones which we need to look at and develop indicators which need to be independently monitored. I think that's where it becomes very important. So the question about decentralized procurement, see, it's a question of governance, I would say. Say for example, if I take PDS improvements which have been done in Chhattisgarh, for example, there was a wonderful story, say 10 years back, 15 years back, which Chhattisgarh could do. and from there they couldn't diversify because of the limitations they had as a state. Say on millets, the way Odisha went about and then they made changes kind of thing. So initially there may be certain problems, but the more decisions they can take, I think it will be better. I would say how long we are going to continue taking all the key decisions in agriculture centrally, while agriculture is a state subject. If you look at, say, seeds, for example, if there is a failure of seed, it's a state responsibility, but the entire governance is done by the center. And procurement, cropping patterns, input subsidies, if everything is decided centrally, and states have very small elbow room to play with. So I think it's now, I would say, probably we should get into a version 2.0 where we think about new way Department of Agriculture functions or the new way agriculture subsidies function, because we have already nearly 70-80 years have been passed, and then we have better systems today, like tracking systems, we have IT systems, we have governance systems, we have better systems compared to say 50-60 years back, and then we can cut down on many of the problems if we can make that shift, is what I would feel.
Yeah, you can speak.
Yeah, I can speak to my, and I don't agree with actually Ramu, though I agree on many things. But closing down ICR is not a solution.
I said accountability. See,
No,
I didn't
you
say
said
closing
nobody
down.
will repent it, nobody will cry for it. I don't think so. I'm one of the first few critiques of ICR. My paper, you can go on the internet, is one a very cited paper on Indian Council of Agricultural Research. I looked at things before even Vandana and others came in. One size fit all, brought it out, soils, everything I brought out, issues which are today current, I brought out in that particular paper. Okay, point number one. Point number two, see, systems evolve, systems learn. So many people here, including Dr. Gulati and others, Ramesh Chan, everybody is learning, and systems can learn. ICR is prevented from learning by whom? It's by the narratives of people outside. They want them to do GM, they want them to GE, they don't want them to soils. There was no, actually if you look around, scientists were made to do adaptive research, largely. ICR system did not even have the strength of the basic sciences. Right in the beginning, if you look at the investments which went into All India Coordinated Research Project and the basic science scheme, there were very few. And ICR system evolved in a particular manner rather than really transforming it, developing it, evolving it.
Is there a question?
Is going to harm and not be a solution. And are you going to depend on private agriculture universities? Are you going to depend on the corporate giants for agriculture? I suppose no.
Okay, point well taken.
Can
I think
answer this question?
he'll
See,
respond
I
to
think,
that. You had a point, Ajay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because now that we have Ramu in Delhi, it's very difficult to get here. And we have Sanjeev and maybe the other journalists here. As a finally, if you could comment on the draft seed bill, because people would want to know, it's very controversial in the sense the process, especially even though it's not process outcomes. If you could just give a few points, I think so.
Yeah, let him answer these two.
And then,
Then, along with that, the PPVFR and the international thing. I think there are two amendments within India and one internationally, which are interconnected.
Yeah. See, I think just to respond to what Dinesh has said, see, I think I was not making a point that ICR has to be closed down. What I was trying to say is ICR has to be significantly transformed. And the responsibility of transformation lies with ICR. It's not outsiders kind of thing. I think they should prioritize what is required, and that should come from a regulatory system. I think the system we need to bring in, that they will be accountable for some of the claims which they are making, rather than just getting away by saying everything, because they're the decision makers in this country, because some of the things. Second, when I say ICR has to be reformed, I'm also saying this is not a binary saying ICR versus private. It's also about giving more power to the state agriculture universities. Why we are not giving enough resources to the state agriculture universities, and then because they are more closer to the people. Let the states work more better and then work on what is required. So then the ICR will become a kind of basic research institution which can coordinate the research work rather than building two parallel systems in this country. I think that's how I would see as the way forward. So building accountability certainly I think is something which I would ask for in ICR, because every rupee paid also, I also contribute for that as a taxpayer. Second question on the seed bill. See, I think there are few problems with the seed bill. I would say three levels of the problem. First, the seed bill, this is for regulating the seed systems in this country. Just to give you a history, if you know, in 1966, the first bill was made. First India seed law was made, and second came in only in 2004. The draft came in 2004. By the time significantly the situations have changed. But the 2004 draft could never become a law. So it took 25 years, 20 years nearly again to come as a second version, another version. I would say 2-3 versions happened in between. But this current bill starts with basically saying ease of doing business in seed is the priority for this bill, which is the wrong thing. I think we need to talk about establishing a good seed system for the nation as the priority for the country. I think that's the first thing we should look at, because then onwards the entire bill talks about how do we make it easy for the companies to invest, how do we give more rights to the companies, rather than talking about what seed system should do. That's the first problem. Second problem, farmers are the ones who produce seed. So though we have 400 plus seed companies in this country, they all partner with farmers to produce the seed companies, but these farmers have no protection at all. Farmers were producing seed, and just to give an example, this year we had a huge loss happened with the maize seed producers, and then we made a survey, and then we actually in Telangana state government looked into the whole thing. Farmers are given 36 rupees per kg of maize, and the same seed is sold at 500 rupees in the market, and that's a huge profit the company makes. Let them make the profit, but if there is any problem farmer faces, there is no accountability for the company. Company never has an agreement with the farmer. So seed producers problem or seed consumers problem, both are not touched upon in the bill at all. Say for example, if there is a seed failure, whom to go, and then how to address, and then how to assess failure is never touched upon in this bill. So there is no accountability for the companies, either with the seed producers or with the seed consumers. That's the second problem. Third problem is the state government's role, because agriculture is a state subject, but center can decide the whole thing about which seeds to be sold. So they said this time they are introducing something called as accreditation. If the center accredits a company, they can sell anywhere. State cannot say no. Even if there is a problem with the company or the problem with the seeds, state cannot say no. So that is the third major problem. Fourth major problem in this bill is say any value for cultivation and use data for any crop variety. They said even the international data can be accepted. The variety developed and checked in Punjab is not working well in Rajasthan, adjacent state. And now we are saying whatever is tested in US can be, the same data can be accepted in Indian condition. I think that's the biggest problem. Another also they said the certification given by any company anywhere in any agency anywhere in the world can be accepted. I think all these are the major issues with the current seed bill. And apart from the seed bill, there are also policy changes which are going to happen with PPPFR, and then so there are a lot of recommendations made. I don't know how many of them are taken on board at all. And again, see, the problem is about it's not the PPPFR. If you look at plant variety protection and farmers' rights, though it calls about as farmers' rights, it's also a plant breeders' rights. I would say extended to farmers, not so much as a farmers' rights per se. And so there were a lot of changes which are being suggested. I don't know how many of them are taken into account. So what is coming in, I can't say. And I think giving exclusive rights to anyone is a problem in this country, not only in India, everywhere, because crops and seeds are common heritage. And just adding one value, small value addition of selection should not give any exclusive right. I think that's what I would feel, either in the name of plant breeders' rights or patents, and that has caused havoc all over the world. I think we should not agree on that, any exclusive rights framework in any form. And on the international treaty, probably Dinesh will be a right person to answer than me. That also been amended, and the discussion is straight there, happening today and tomorrow. So it's going on. So yeah, it's going on. So we are on seed front. There is a significant issues we are going to face with.
Okay, I think we won't take questions on this because we surprised him with that question. No more questions. So thank you, Ramu. I think it was a delightful presentation by you. But what I take away from you is, in the morning we said more money for R&D. Now you're saying it should be more decentralized. So I think we have to put a caveat on what that money will do and where will it go, and how a decentralized democratic farmer. And in fact, I was thinking that Ajay Jakar, you said RBI governor doesn't meet you. Does DG ICR meet you very often? He does. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the audience. I think it has been a delightful day today. We are probably some of the best people we could get to speak on agriculture and food systems. Each brings his own perspective, somewhat radical views sometimes, but I think it's important to hear all the views, and we have always believed, and thanks to David Nabarro and his persuasive skills, that we must have frank discussions in a very healthy, peaceful environment. That's what actually takes us collectively forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, tea is served outside. So